This story took place about 18 years ago. I went to Houston because I found a job at a knit firm. I was 20 years old at the time. I made some friends while I was out there, so we decided to go out one night. While we were out that night, I met a beautiful girl. She was wild. We started talking, and we liked each other. We drank and partied together, and we exchanged contact. Back then, we had landlines, so we talked on the phone about everything. She would tell me how much she hated living with her father and mother, and how they argued all the time, especially her dad. She was 19 years old at the time. We just met and never had access yet, but we were already talking about moving in together, and how beautiful our baby would look. A few weeks later, we went out again, and I noticed she likes to drink a lot and would smoke weed. I was fine with the weed, but then she would start talking about doing hard stuff, which I wasn't cool with. But hey, I wasn't cool with that, but she was hot and I was in love, and my tolerance for her BS was low. I took her to my place, and we had a steamy night. But one time, I dropped her off at her house, and her mom kept cursing at me, saying that I was a bad influence on her daughter, and that she should dump me. Her dad threatened to shoot me the next time he sees me at his house. I come to find out, her mom had been listening to our conversation on the other line all along. Well, needless to say, I never got along with her parents. But yet we continued to date. We continued to date for 3 more months. Then I broke up with her because of her frequent alcohol and drug usage. I never understood the need for anyone to get completely wasted on alcohol. It's 1 or 2 drinks, fine. Smoke some dope, fine. White powder. What the S? That was too much for me. So, I ended it. She was constantly plastered and uncontrollable. A few weeks later, after we broke up, she called me on the phone, and she told me that she was pregnant. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I don't want to be a father yet. But I asked her what she wanted to do. She said she wanted to abort it. That was back in 2003-2004, so access to clinics were readily available. I asked her if that's what she really wanted. She insisted, and I sent her a $600 money order to help pay for it. I asked her if she wanted me to come along with her, and she said no, that she was going with her friend. The following day, I called her to see how the removal went, and she didn't want to talk about it and generally didn't want to answer my call. So I kind of said a bit, and we stopped talking. She dropped off from the face of the earth, and we lost contact. A couple of months later, I lost my job because the IT company I was working for went out of business. Since I couldn't easily find another one for months, things were rough. So I decided to move back to Denver with my parents. I got a new phone number, and life kind of went on from there. I found a job and continued to live with my parents. About a year after I moved back to Denver, I was at my job when someone told me that my boss had called me. So, I got to his office, and he told me that there was a doubt. It was brought to my attention that there was a bounty hunter looking for me outside. I was taken aback and scared out of my mind. I explained that there must be a mistake as I hadn't committed any crimes. Upon investigating, I discovered that my ex-girlfriend's parents had hired someone to track me down, claiming that I had impregnated their daughter. I was perplexed, as I believed this issue had been resolved months ago when I provided her with money for the pregnancy termination. I was under the impression that she might have become pregnant again. The bounty hunter informed me that the baby was a few months old and was being cared for by her parents. They were also seeking me out to start paying child support for their grandchild. I was served a court order to appear on a specified date. The situation caused a dramatic scene at my workplace, leading to my dismissal without consideration of my side of the story. I found her contact information and called her. She revealed that her mother was pressuring her to get in touch with me for child support, holding me responsible for the baby. I was taken aback. I inquired about the money I had given her for the pregnancy termination, and she admitted that she had not used it as intended. She explained that she had taken a pill that made her ill, so she left the clinic. At the time, being in my early 20s, I was unaware of the details of pregnancy termination, procedures beyond what was taught in high school. I confided in my mother about the entire ordeal, coinciding with losing my job and my father being laid off, leading to significant financial uncertainty in our family. Additionally, my ex-girlfriend's persistent requests for money, coupled with her parents mistreating her due to the baby, caused me immense stress and depression. My mother and I gathered what we could and sent it to her. I appeared in court in Texas, only to be met with hostility from her parents, who demanded child support. The court presented me with a choice: either accept paternity and pay for the child or undergo a paternity test. Seeking advice from my parents, I opted for a paternity test to ensure that I was indeed responsible. By this time, it had been about a year since our relationship ended, and I had moved back in with my parents after losing my job due to the commotion caused by the bounty hunter. Before leaving for Denver, I visited a clinic to undergo a paternity test. 6 months later, the results came back inconclusive, leaving me frustrated after anxiously awaiting the outcome. During this period, I was constantly harassed by phone calls. The calls from her mom and dad, demanding money to support the baby. I couldn't afford the trip back to Texas again, so they had to send another bounty hunter looking for me to serve me, schedule a court date again. And a few months later, the result came out again as inconclusive. I would just as soon chalk it up as either operator error or somehow something got contaminated at some stage along the way. The second test, for some reason, took darn near 3 months before anyone heard anything. I never got more information than that, so either something happened at the lab. I don't know. By then, it's been almost 2 years now, and I found a job. So I couldn't be going back and forth on this. I was tired of the stress. Some of you asked why I didn't become the child's father. Because I wasn't ready for it at this point in my life. 23 years old, no job, no prospect, thousands of miles gone, and I never got along with her family. I wanted to just get the result and be done with it. If I was the father, I would take hours. I went and got the test in my state. After I got it done, I got the result back quicker. Less than 2 probability of genetic match. So by the time 2 years since the night of conception rolled around, we finally had the result in. I remember opening the envelope and looking at it over. A lot of it I didn't understand. I did see less than 2 chance of genetic match. I called the number at the top of the form and spoke to a woman, provided the information, and she took me through it. It was absolutely no way I could be the father. Now, I will admit, I was elated at first. I thanked the woman, hung up and looked at my cell. I had to call her and the reality sets in. I called her after all the crying and admission. I asked her what really happened that day she went in for removal. As on her way to the clinic, she said something inside her clicked, and she wanted to keep it. The roughly $600 I sent, she used it for clothes and stuff for the baby. I asked her why she couldn't just be honest from the start, and who really is the father of a baby. She was crying. She said 2 weeks before we had our night under the sheets that resulted in the baby 9 months later. Her father had come home drunk and out of his mind and forced himself on her. I still recall the tone of her voice asking me if I had really actually taken the test and that it was real. Well, it turns out that her mom was on the other line and she heard our conversation. She reported her dad to the police and they took a DNA test. Who would have guessed? Her dad happened to be the biological father of her kid. And this scumbag has been dragging me to court to pay child support for his baby when he knew darn well that he knocked up his own daughter. Next in my mind, I was done. I had 2 years of my life interspersed with phone calls, genetic test visits, even bounty hunters showing up at my door and place of work, serving me with notice from her family to show up or else. I don't know. My mom was under the impression that I should have sued for mental anguish and damages, which made no sense at the time because of how miserable she was and the circumstance she finds herself in. I felt horrible for her. I can't even joke about this. Her dad was arrested and the kid, last I heard, was doing well. It forced her to clean up her act. She had gone in for heavy drugs and alcohol use, and it drove us apart before the child did, and that was 18 years or so ago. We don't talk. Every once in a while, I would think about the kid, but this world ain't a nice place, and with all the stuff she had gone through, I wasn't going to make it worse, so I left it alone. I can't even fathom it, to be honest, and still considered the man to be a scum-sucking trash for putting his daughter through all that. And I can't exactly fault her at all, literally wanting me to be the father. She was hoping that it was the case because she revived her. In the end, we agreed not to be angry with one another. She was pissed at her father, though. I didn't know if that ever went the way, though I highly doubt it did. From the little I've heard from mutual friends over 10 years ago, her dad apparently came out of prison 3 years later, a Bible guy. This all took place in Texas, by the way. Supposedly, he was doing his best to support her and whatnot, but there was some kind of falling apart, and she moved out and in with her girlfriend up in Dallas. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Please support this channel by liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Let's get some reaction in the comment section. Thank you and have a wonderful day.